The Shadow Relic. Part 1, The Shrouded Wanderer. In the sprawling desert city of Velran, surrounded by windswept dunes and ancient ruins, lived a young archivist named Kyle. A man of humble origins, Kyle possessed an insatiable thirst for knowledge and adventure. He was the son of a merchant family, but the untimely death of his parents had left him to carve out a modest life within the grand archives of Velran. While others sought wealth or status, Kyle dreamt of unraveling the mysteries of the world, of forgotten lands, and of powerful, ancient artifacts whispered about in legend. Kyle's fascination revolved around one such artifact, the Shadow Relic, an object said to grant dominion over shadows themselves. For years, he had pored over faded scrolls and cryptic tomes, piecing together fragmented accounts of its existence. Most dismissed the relic as mere myth, but Kyle was convinced it was real, and that it lay hidden beneath the fabled ruins of Zarul Shai, the City of Shadows, deep within the Ralam wastes. One evening, while the sun dipped below the horizon and cast Velran in golden light, Kyle unearthed a key discovery in an obscure manuscript. It described a map that could lead to Zarul Shai, hidden within a forgotten temple on the outskirts of the desert. The thrill of possibility lit a fire within him. For the first time in his life, Kyle felt the stirrings of destiny. But adventure often comes at a cost. The call to adventure. Kyle's newfound purpose was interrupted that very night. As he left the archives, clutching his notes, a robed stranger emerged from the shadows of an alleyway. The figure's voice was soft but firm, laced with an eerie resonance. "You seek what others fear to touch," the stranger said. "The Shadow Relic is no mere treasure, it is a curse, bound to the darkness it commands." Kyle's heart raced, but his resolve did not waver. "How do you know this?" The stranger revealed themselves to be Ilindra, a once powerful mage bound by a curse that had drained her magic and tied her soul to the relic's fate. Her pale eyes shimmered with an unnatural glow, and her presence exuded a weary wisdom. "You are not the first to seek it," she said. "But you may be the last. Zarul Shai devours all who enter it. If you pursue this path, I will not stop you, but you will need more than courage to survive." Ilindra gave Kyle a gift, the Compass of Shadows, an enchanted artifact that could guide its wielder to hidden paths and lost places. However, the compass came with a warning. Trust not only its direction but your own instincts. The compass bends to the will of its bearer, but the shadows are cunning, and they will test you. The journey begins. Kyle wasted no time. Armed with his notes and the Compass of Shadows, he set out the following morning, accompanied by his childhood friend, Tan, a boisterous yet loyal blacksmith with a knack for handling danger. Despite his protests about chasing myths, Tan's protective nature wouldn't allow Kyle to venture into the unknown alone. The journey to the temple was fraught with peril. As they traversed the dunes, they encountered a band of desert raiders, drawn to rumors of Kyle's map. A swift but tense skirmish ensued, with Kyle and Tan narrowly escaping thanks to the compass, which revealed a hidden ravine where they could take shelter. When they finally reached the temple, it was a crumbling monolith, half buried in sand. Carvings of shadowy figures adorned its walls, their eyes seemingly following the pair as they entered. The air grew colder, unnaturally so, as they descended into the depths. Deep within, they found the map, but it was guarded by an ancient trap, a room filled with shifting shadow beasts that could only be dispelled by light. Using Tan's quick thinking and Kyle's knowledge of ancient GLYPHS, they managed to outwit the Guardians and escape with the map. But their victory was short-lived. The shadow stirs. As they emerged from the temple, the map in hand, a dark figure awaited them atop the dunes. Clad in black armor that seemed to drink in the sunlight, the figure was revealed to be Lord Varin, a powerful warlock who sought the Shadow Relic to bend the world to his will. "You think you can challenge me for what is mine by right?" Varin's voice boomed, laced with malice. He raised his staff, and the shadows around him writhed as though alive. Kyle and Tun barely escaped, the compass once again revealing a hidden path. But Varin's presence loomed large in their minds. Kyle now understood that his journey was not just about uncovering ancient secrets, it was a race against a foe whose power seemed insurmountable. The weight of destiny. That night, as they camped under the stars, Ilindra appeared once more, this time in a vision conjured by the compass. "You have taken your first steps," she said, her voice echoing like the whisper of the wind. "But the path ahead will demand more than courage. The relic's power is seductive, it will test your heart as much as your strength. Are you prepared to face not just Lord Varin but the darkness within yourself?" Kyle did not answer immediately. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. Yet as he gazed at the stars above, he thought of the lives that could be saved if the relic's power was kept from Varin's hands. His resolve hardened. "I may not be prepared," he finally said. "But I will do whatever it takes." With the map and the compass as his guides, Kyle knew his journey was only beginning. Zarul Shai awaited, as did the Shadow Relic, and with it, the ultimate test of his spirit. Part 2, The City of Shadows. The trek to Zarul Shai. The journey to Zarul Shai was as harrowing as the legends warned. The Ralam wastes were vast and unforgiving, a barren land of shifting sands, jagged rock formations, and mirages that lured travelers to their doom. With the compass of shadows in hand and the ancient map as their guide, Kyle and Tun pressed forward, navigating through searing days and freezing nights. The compass led them not by traditional paths but through treacherous routes that defied logic. At times, it spun wildly, pointing them toward sandstorms or leading them into narrow, labyrinthine canyons. Kyle began to suspect the compass wasn't merely a guide but a test in itself, forcing him to rely on both its magic and his own instincts. As the days stretched on, the desert began to play tricks on their minds. They saw flickering shadows in the distance, heard whispers in the wind, and caught glimpses of phantom figures trailing them. Tun grew uneasy. "This place isn't right," he muttered one night as they set up camp. "It feels alive. Like it's watching us." Kyle couldn't deny it. The closer they came to Zarul Shai, the more oppressive the air became, as if the land itself was warning them to turn back. The city emerges. On the 10th day, they reached the edge of a colossal ravine. Kyle felt his breath catch in his chest as he looked down. There, shrouded in perpetual twilight, lay Zarul Shai, the city of shadows. The ruins stretched endlessly across the ravine floor, a labyrinth of crumbling towers, shadowed courtyards, and ancient temples. Black obelisks jutted skyward, etched with glowing runes that pulsed faintly, casting an eerie light. Above the city hung a strange, swirling veil of darkness that blotted out the sun, bathing everything in an unearthly gloom. As they descended into the ravine, Kyle felt the compass grow heavier in his hand. Its needle spun erratically before finally settling, pointing directly toward the heart of the city, a massive temple crowned with a jagged spire. "That must be it," Kyle said. "The Temple of Shadows. The relic is inside." Tun glanced uneasily at the looming structure. "Great. Let's grab it and get out of here before something decides we look tasty." The shadows embrace. The city was eerily silent, save for the occasional howl of wind through the ruins. As they moved deeper into Zarul Shai, the shadows seemed to come alive, shifting and twisting as if aware of their presence. It wasn't long before the first test presented itself. A collapsed archway blocked their path, its massive stones impossible to climb. But as Kyle studied the rubble, he noticed faint markings on the ground, glyphs similar to those in the temple where they'd found the map. The compass must be the key, Kyle murmured. Holding it aloft, he traced the glyphs with its needle. The air shimmered, and the rubble began to shift, melting into shadows that dispersed like smoke. Neat, Trigton said, though his voice was strained. But the magic came with a cost. Kyle felt a sharp tug in his chest, as though the compass had drained a part of him. Alindra's warning echoed in his mind, the shadows will test you. The guardians of Zarul Shai. As they neared the temple, the shadows grew bolder. Figures emerged from the darkness, humanoid forms with hollow, glowing eyes and bodies that flickered like dying flames. Shadow wraiths, Kyle whispered, recognizing them from his studies. Guardians of the city. The wraiths attacked without hesitation. Kyle and Tan fought desperately, using the compass's light and Tan's sword to fend them off. But for every wraith they struck down, another rose from the shadows. Realizing they couldn't win by force, Kyle used the compass to illuminate a hidden passage that led beneath the city. They barely escaped, the wraiths' anguished cries echoing behind them. The heart of the temple. The hidden passage led directly to the Temple of Shadows. Its towering spire loomed above them, its walls covered in intricate carvings of shadowy figures bowing to a central figure, a man crowned in darkness, holding the Shadow Relic. Inside, the air was thick and heavy, and the only light came from the compass. The temple's interior was a maze of corridors and chambers, each filled with traps designed to test the worth of any who sought the relic. One chamber forced Kyle to confront his deepest fears, visions of failure, of losing Tan, and of succumbing to the relic's power. Another tested his resolve, tempting him with illusions of a life free from danger and responsibility. Through it all, Kyle clung to his purpose. He reminded himself that the relic couldn't fall into Lord Varin's hands, no matter the cost. At last, they reached the central chamber. The Shadow Relic floated above a pedestal, encased in a swirling vortex of dark energy. It was a small, unassuming object, a black crystal set in an ornate silver frame, but its power was palpable. The betrayal. As Kyle reached for the relic, the air grew cold. The shadows coalesced behind him, and Lord Varin stepped forward, his dark armor glinting in the faint light. "Well done," Archivist Varin said, his voice dripping with mockery. "I must admit, I didn't think you'd make it this far. But I'll take it from here." Kyle's heart sank. He hadn't even heard Varin approach. The warlock raised his staff, and the shadows around him surged forward, binding Kyle and Tan in place. "You have no idea what you've found," Varin continued. "The relic isn't just a source of power, it's a gateway. With it, I will summon the Shadow Sovereign and usher in a new age." Kyle struggled against the shadows, but they held fast. Varin began to chant, the runes on the walls glowing brighter as the relic pulsed with dark energy. The twist. In that moment, the compass of shadows reacted. It flared with light, breaking Kyle's bonds. Instinctively, Kyle hurled the compass at the relic. The two artifacts collided, creating a blinding explosion of light and shadow. When the light faded, Kyle found himself alone in the chamber, the relic still floating above the pedestal. Varin was gone, consumed by his own ambition. But the victory felt hollow. Kyle realized the relic's power was too great to remain in the world. He would have to make a choice, to take the relic and risk succumbing to its darkness, or to find a way to destroy it. Part 3, The Final Trial. The weight of the relic. Kyle stood before the Shadow Relic, its dark aura pulsating in rhythm with his own heartbeat. The chamber was eerily silent, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Despite the chaos moments earlier, the relic floated serenely, its black crystal shimmering with a faint, malevolent light. Tun groaned from where he lay nearby, stirring awake after being knocked unconscious by the explosion. "Kyle, what happened?" he rasped, clutching his side as he sat up. "Varin is gone," Kyle said, his voice hollow. "The relic rejected him, or maybe he wasn't strong enough to control it. But it's still here. And if we leave it, someone else will come for it." Tun's gaze shifted to the relic, and his face darkened. "You're not thinking of taking it, are you?" "I don't know," Kyle admitted, his hand trembling as he reached for the compass, now lying shattered on the floor. "But if we destroy it, we might unleash whatever power is trapped inside. And if we leave it, it's only a matter of time before someone worse than Varin comes along." The voice of the shadows. As Kyle debated, the relic began to hum, its dark light intensifying. A voice whispered in his mind, soft and seductive, yet carrying an undeniable weight of authority. "Kyle, you are different from the others. You seek knowledge, not power. Take me, and I will grant you the answers to every mystery you have ever sought. Together, we can reshape this world, free it from its chaos and suffering." Kyle clenched his fists, his heart pounding. The voice was everything he had feared, tempting, persuasive, and deeply personal. "Kyle." Tun's voice cut through the whispers, grounding him. "Don't listen to it. That thing doesn't want to help you, it wants to use you. You saw what it did to Varin." Kyle turned to his friend, conflict etched on his face. "And what if it's right? What if I can use it to do good? To stop people like Varin forever?" Tun stepped closer, his voice firm. "You're the smartest person I know, but even you don't have all the answers. Sometimes, the right thing isn't about having power, it's about choosing not to take it." The final guardian. Before Kyle could respond, the chamber trembled. Shadows peeled away from the walls, coalescing into a towering figure, a being of pure darkness with piercing white eyes. It was the Shadow Sovereign, the ancient entity bound to the relic, its form radiating an overwhelming aura of power. "You dare to disturb my prison?" The Sovereign thundered, its voice reverberating through the chamber. "Mortal, you seek to claim what you cannot comprehend. Prove your worth, or perish." Kyle barely had time to react before the Sovereign attacked, wielding tendrils of shadow that lashed out like living whips. Tun leapt forward, his sword gleaming as it deflected one of the strikes, but the sheer force sent him crashing into a pillar. Kyle dodged another strike, his mind racing. The compass was broken, and the relic was the source of the Sovereign's power. If he destroyed the relic, would it destroy the Sovereign, or release it? The test of sacrifice. As the Sovereign loomed closer, Kyle's eyes fell on the shattered compass of shadows. Despite its broken state, its faint light flickered, as though calling to him. He grabbed it, feeling a spark of energy course through him. The Sovereign paused, its gaze fixed on the compass. "You wield the light, but it is fleeting," it said. "To defeat me, you must give something of yourself. Are you willing to pay the price?" Kyle hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The compass could channel his life force, amplifying its power enough to destroy the relic and the sovereign, but it would come at great personal cost. Kyle, don't! Tun shouted, struggling to his feet. There has to be another way. Kyle looked at his friend, then at the sovereign, and finally at the relic. He knew there was no other way. If the price is my life, then so be it, Kyle said, gripping the compass tightly. The sovereign laughed, a deep, resonant sound. Brave words. But do you truly understand what you offer? The light within. Kyle closed his eyes, focusing on the faint light of the compass. He thought of his parents, who had taught him the value of selflessness. He thought of Tun, who had stood by him through every trial. And he thought of Ilindra, who had warned him of the relic's power and trusted him to make the right choice. The compass flared to life, its light piercing through the chamber. The sovereign roared in defiance, its form unraveling as the light consumed it. Kyle felt the energy draining from his body, but he didn't stop. He directed the light toward the relic, shattering it into 1,000 fragments. The sovereign let out a final, ear-splitting scream before vanishing into nothingness. As the light faded, Kyle collapsed to his knees. The compass of shadows crumbled to dust in his hands. The aftermath. The chamber was silent once more, the oppressive darkness lifted. Tun rushed to Kyle's side, helping him stand. You did it, Tun said, his voice filled with awe. The relic's gone. The sovereign's gone. You're still here. Kyle smiled weakly. I guess it wasn't my time yet. As they made their way out of Zaral Shai, Kyle felt a strange sense of peace. The relic's destruction had taken its toll on him, he felt older, wearier, but he also felt lighter, as though a great burden had been lifted. The lesson of the shadows. Back in Velran, Kyle returned to the Grand Archives, dedicating himself to preserving the lessons he had learned. He recorded the story of the Shadow Relic, not as a tale of power but as a cautionary reminder of the dangers of ambition and the strength found in selflessness. Tun, ever loyal, stayed by Kyle's side, ensuring his friend never lost sight of the light within himself. And though the world would never know of Kyle's sacrifice, the shadows that had once threatened to consume it were gone, replaced by a legacy of hope and wisdom. The end.